Should we start? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Ayyuhal ikhwa, we begin bifadlillahi ta'ala a new series of lessons in studying and revising Kitāb At-Tawheed, a book and a treatise which I'm sure everybody here is aware of, authored by Al-Imam Al-Mujaddid Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah. And as you know and you're aware of, this treatise is regarding At-Tawheed. And no doubt learning about Tawheed is the greatest science or type of knowledge that a person can learn about. And this is because the knowledge of any subject or any science is as noble as that which you are studying. Any science is as noble as the subject matter. So for example, why is medicine so noble? Because the subject matter is illnesses and cures and medicine and the human body. So because the subject matter is so important, then that science becomes important. Now, when we study Tawheed, what is the subject matter, if it's correct to use that term? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say Allahu Akbar, every day we say Allahu Akbar, then the knowledge of Allah is also Akbar. And we say Allahu A'la, then the knowledge regarding Allah mean Tawheed is also A'la. And we say Allah Ajal, Jalla Jalaluhu, then also knowledge regarding Allah, i.e. At-Tawheed, is also Ajal, is also the most majestic. And there is nothing which purifies a person's heart and a soul like At-Tawheed. In fact, there's no way for Tazkiyatun Nafs without At-Tawheed. And this is something that we have to understand, that Tazkiyatun Nafs cannot be attained through shirkiyat and bid'ah and khurafat, stories. Tazkiyatun Nafs can only be attained through At-Tawheed. And upon Tawheed is success in this life and in the hereafter. So if a person asks, why is Tawheed important? If a person asks, why is Tawheed important? Firstly, we said that the importance and the nobility of any science is dependent upon the subject matter which is being studied. And so because the subject matter, if it's correct to use that term, that we study when it comes to Tawheed is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nothing greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then there's nothing greater than the science of At-Tawheed and Al-Aqidah. Secondly, because Tawheed is the first obligation, the greatest obligation, the first of the 5 pillars of Islam, and the first of the 6 pillars of Al-Iman. And Tawheed comes before Salah and before Siyam. In fact, Tawheed is the fundamental condition for any act of worship being accepted. Thirdly, because Allah subhanahu created us for Tawheed. He said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create jinn nor mankind except to worship me. And the meaning of ya'budun is yuwahidun. The meaning of worship me is to worship me upon At-Tawheed, as Ibn Abbaas radiallahu anhuma said. And the reason why Tawheed is important is because this was the message of every single prophet and messenger. So the shara'i', the messages which came previously, the messengers who came previously, there was an aspect of the message which was the same, and then there was an aspect of their message which changed from messenger to messenger, prophet to prophet. So the core fundamental of all of their message, i.e. to worship Allah alone, has always remained the same. Tawheed has never changed. And this is why there is no naskh, there is no abrogation when it comes to Tawheed. But the acts of worship and the ahkam, the rulings, and the hudud, the punishments, this is what has changed. From prophet to prophet and sharia to sharia, the acts of worship which they had to do and how they had to do them and the associated rewards and punishments and the ahkam, this has changed from prophet to prophet. However, the core aspect has never changed. Now this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا. Verily we have sent to every single ummah a messenger with the same message. أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. That you worship Allah alone and you stay away from At-Tawheed, either false deities. And Tawheed is also important because safety, security and success in this dunya and the akhirah is based upon At-Tawheed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who have iman, وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِالظُّلْمِ, and they do not mix their iman with dhulm. لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. For them is complete safety and security, and they will be guided. So in this ayah in Surah Al-An'am, ayah number 82, and if you can't write the full ayah down, then write the reference down. If nothing else, just write the reference down, because then at least you can return back to it in your own time. So what you're writing now, you should have written number 5, I mean the 5th reason why Tawheed is important is because safety, security and success is based upon Tawheed. What's the evidence? If you can't write the whole ayah down, write Surah Al-An'am, ayah number 82, and then you can go back to it in your own time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in this ayah, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who have iman, وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِالظُّلْمِ, and they do not mix their iman with dhulm. أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ, for them is safety. وَهُمْ يُهْتَدُونَ, and they are the ones, وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ, and they are the ones who are guided. So in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, those who have iman, and they do not mix dhulm in their iman. Now the Sahaba, as was narrated by Ibn Mas'ud, they said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, أَيُّنَا لَا يَظْلِمْ نَفْسَهُ, who amongst us never does any type of dhulm? How is it possible for us to ever be free of any type of dhulm, meaning dhulm against our own selves through sins? So the Sahaba said that nobody amongst us has been created perfect. Nobody is free of sins. So either we are oppressing our own selves through sins, which we will always do, or we are oppressing other people. So who amongst us is ever free from dhulm? This ayah said, وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِالظُّلْمِ. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لَيْسَ كَمَا تَقُولُونَ, that the dhulm in this ayah is not the dhulm which you're talking about, meaning sins and wronging yourself and wronging your others. He said, أَوَلَمْ تَسْمَعُوا إِلَىٰ قَوْلِ لُقْمَانِ لِابْنِهِ. Do you not know the statement of Luqman to his son when he said, Ya bunayya la tushrik billah inna shirka la dhulmun azim. O my son, do not commit shirk with Allah, because shirk is the great dhulm. So the meaning of this ayah, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِالظُّلْمِ, those who have iman and then they do not confuse their iman with dhulm, meaning with shirk. Those people, lahumul amn, for them is complete safety, وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ, and they are the ones who are guided. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah in Majmul al-Fatawa, and I'll send you this quote later on, he said, woman, because this quote is important, he said, وَمَنْ تَدَبَّرَ أَحْوَالَ الْعَالَمِ, that whoever thinks and reflects over the state of the people, over the state of the ummah, وَجَدَ كُلَّ صَلَاحٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ, he will find that every type of success and safety upon the earth, sababuhu, its cause or its reason is Tawheedullah, is the Tawheed of Allah, wa ibadatuhu, and his worship, wa ta'atu rasulihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and obeying his messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa kulla sharrin fil alam, and every evil, every harm, every afflicity, every calamity upon the earth, amongst the humans, amongst the ummah, whether it's a fitna, a tribulation, or it is bala, or it is a test, or qaht, or a drought, or taslitul adu, or whether it's the enemies of Islam humiliating the Muslims. All of this, sababuhu, its primary cause is what? Mukhalafat al-Rasul, disobeying the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa da'wa ila ghayrillah, and shirk, invoking others besides Allah. وَمَنْ تَدَبَّرَ هَذَا حَقَّ تَدَبُّرٍ, and whoever reflects and thinks about this properly, وَجَدَ هَذَا الْأَمْرِ كَذَلِكَ, he will find that this is the reality of the affairs. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. So this quote, why do I mention it? Because everything, I mean, all of us here, we are all aware of what's happening to the Muslim countries right now. It's not hidden from anybody. You open any news website, any news channel, any YouTube page, Muslims, non-Muslims, Arabs, non-Arabs, and the headlines are about the Muslim countries now. And it's not even one country, multiple countries, all the time. And there's no doubt that this is dhulm from the enemies of Islam. Without doubt, this is dhulm from the enemies of Islam. But as Muslims, we have to look at our own selves. And we have to understand what is causing this dhulm, or what is allowing this dhulm to take place. And without doubt, it's shirk and a weakness of yaqeen and tawakkul upon Allah, and disobeying the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and our sins. And therefore, what's the solution? Like the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, حَتَّى تَرْجِعُوا إِلَى دِينِكُمْ وَلَا يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ هَذَا الذُّلْمَ عَنِ الْأُمَّةِ حَتَّى تَرْجِعُوا إِلَى دِينِكُمْ. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, and Allah will not remove this humiliation from the ummah until you return back to your religion. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said in the hadith, and Allah will not remove this humiliation from the ummah until you return back to your religion. So this also shows us the importance of At-Tawheed and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also from the importance of studying Tawheed is Tawheed can be forgotten just like any other Islamic science is forgotten. So for example, fiqh and the study of fiqh, it always requires revision. And if a person stops revising fiqh, he'll forget it. The Quran, if you stop revising the Quran, you forget the Quran. And like this Tawheed, if a person stops studying and revising and recalling Tawheed, he forgets a Tawheed and can fall into a shirk. So for example, when Ramadan comes and we have lessons and gatherings about Ahkam al-Ramadan, Ahkam al-Sawm, everybody has it up here. Why? Because we revised it. But 2 months after Ramadan, then the rulings are forgotten. Like this Hajj and Umrah. Before you go Hajj and Umrah and you read your books, you know all of the rulings. You're sure of everything. But then 2 months after performing Umrah, you've forgotten everything again. Why? Because you didn't revise it. Now, the rulings of Janazah, even the dua of Janazah. Just before a Janazah, when you quickly revise it, then everything's in your mind. And then when the next Janazah comes, you need to revise it again because you've forgotten. So just as Quran, fiqh, Ahkam al-Siyam, Ahkam al-Janaiz, these things are forgotten if you don't revise them, like this At-Tawheed. Tawheed is also forgotten if you don't revise it. And also Tawheed is important because this is the ultimate objective of shaitan. The ultimate objective of shaitan is not sins, it's not music, it's not even zina, it's not drinking alcohol, it's not riba. His ultimate objective is what? Ash-shirku billah. Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. Because shirk is the worst severe transgression that a person can make. So these are some of the reasons why the study of Tawheed is important. Now, what is the first one that we mentioned? What did we say, ya ikhwah? Now, what was the first reason we mentioned? Who is paying attention? Before that, what do we say? Because Ahsant, because the nobility of any science depends upon the nobility of that which is being studied, like medicine, like engineering. And so when the subject matter, if it's correct to use that term, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then of course knowledge about Allah is the most important, i.e. At-Tawheed. Then secondly, we said that this is the greatest obligation. This is the foremost obligation. This is the condition for the acceptance of any action. This is the first pillar of Islam, Shahadatu an la ilaha illallah. The first pillar of Iman, al-Imanu billah. This is At-Tawheed. The third reason, as Umar said, because Allah subhanahu created us for Tawheed. The fourth matter we said, because the message of all of the Anbiya wa Rusul was regarding At-Tawheed. The fifth matter we said, because safety and success and salvation is based upon Tawheed from the ayah in Surah Al-An'am. The fifth matter, or the sixth matter we said, because Tawheed can be forgotten, just as fiqh is forgotten. And if a person forgets Tawheed, he falls into shirk. And then the last matter we said is because shirk is the ultimate objective of a shaitan. So when people are ignorant about Tawheed, then they will fall into a shirk. So these are the reasons why it's important to study At-Tawheed. And as I mentioned, or should have been mentioned, everybody, bring with you pens and papers. In fact, look at the kindness of the Masjid, they even give pens. Jazakumullah khair. Or even if you bring your tablets, no problem, but make notes, because we said knowledge is forgotten. So every month we have to revise. So next month I'm going to ask you, why do we study Tawheed? What are the 6 reasons why Tawheed is important? Like this, every single month we revise the previous lesson. Then after this, quickly, who is the author of this book? Al-Imam Al-Mujaddid Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah. He is Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab ibn Sulaiman ibn Ali At-Tamimi Al-Najdi rahimahullah rahmatan wasi'ah. And he was born 115 Hijri. And he passed away 1206 Hijri. Roughly, I think it's 1730 something. Now I'm Gregorian, 1730, only 350, 360 odd years ago. And he's from Banu Tamim. And Banu Tamim is a well-known tribe. And that tribe existed during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave glad tidings regarding Banu Tamim. He said, "Inna ashadda ummati ala ad-dajjal Banu Tamim." The hadith in Sahih Bukhari. Inna ashadda ummati ala ad-dajjal Banu Tamim. The most severe ummah, the most severe tribe from my ummah upon Dajjal will be Banu At-Tamim. And I said the hadith is in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. And then with regards to the book itself, what's the book called? Naam? What? Anything else? Read it, open it, look at the front. What does it say? Bas? No. Kitāb At-Tawheed الذي هو حق الله على العبيد. That's the title of the book. كتاب التوحيد الذي هو حق الله على العبيد. The book of Tawheed, which is the right of Allah upon His people. That is the name of the book. Kitāb At-Tawheed, the book of Allah, the book of Tawheed, which is the right of Allah upon His people. And Allah knows best, but the author, he based the title upon the hadith of Mu'adh radiallahu anhu. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Mu'adh, O Mu'adh, atadri ma haqqullah ala al-ibad? Do you know the right of Allah upon His people? And Mu'adh said, Allahu wa rasuluhu a'lam. Allah and His Messenger knows best. Then the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Haqqullahi ala al-ibad an ya'buduhu wa la yushriku bihi shay'a. That the right of Allah upon His people is that they worship Allah alone, meaning Tawheed, and they do not commit shirk with Him. So he based the title of his book upon the hadith, Kitāb At-Tawheed alladhi huwa haqqullah ala al-abid. The book of Tawheed, which is the right of Allah upon His people. And this book, the author actually wrote when he was a student of knowledge. and he wrote it in Iraq. His grandson, who was Al-Imam Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan ibn Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, he mentioned that the author wrote Kitāb At-Tawheed whilst he was seeking knowledge in Al-Basra, in Al-Iraq. As you know, the author traveled to seek knowledge. So he went to Iraq in Basra, and he went to Al-Ahsa, and he went to Mecca and Al-Madinah after having sought knowledge in Ad-Dir'iyya and Uyayna and Najd, where he was born. And he wrote this book whilst he was in Basra. And the majority of the book is regarding Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, specifically Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, meaning the right of Allah to all worship. The right of Allah to worship. With regards to the book, now write down, the book contains 67 chapters. The book contains 67 chapters. And in these chapters, it contains 84 ayat from the Quran. 84 evidences or 84 ayat from the Quran. And it contains 121 hadith from the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So 67 chapters, 84 ayat of the Quran, 121 hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It contains 67 athar, narrations from the Sahaba and the Tabi'in and from the Salaf. It contains 67 athar, narrations, sayings, statements from the companions and the Tabi'in. And the ulama mention that it contains 587 mas'ala. Yani 587 points of benefit. Masail meaning points of benefit. And the author, he entitles every chapter except from one. And then 85% to 90% of the book is ayat or hadith. And the words of the author himself is actually a very small minority. The majority of the book is ayat and hadith or evidences. Then after this, what we're going to do is we're going to now go through the whole book now by going through the contents of the book. And always before, and whenever I teach any risala, before going into every sentence, I like to read it once, all of it. And as brothers, the students, I like to read the whole risala once, and then we go into it. Why? Because then that will give you an idea of the context of the book and the contents of the book and the issues which are contained within the book. But obviously we can't read the whole risala. So what we'll do is we'll go through the chapter headings and read every single one chapter heading today. And then that will give us a good idea of what this book is about. And some of the ulama mentioned that this book is divided into 10 main chapters, and then those 67 chapters are divided throughout those 10 sections. Naam. Akhi, will you read the English, inshallah? So, the first chapter, naam, the first chapter, there's actually no chapter heading. Naam. The first chapter has no chapter heading, but in the first chapter, he mentions wujub at-Tawheed, the obligation of At-Tawheed. Naam. So the first chapter, there is no chapter heading, but he mentions evidences regarding the obligation of Tawheed. He mentions 4 or 5 ayat and 2 ahadith, and then statements of some of the Sahaba. Naam. Then the second chapter, he said, Babu Fadl At-Tawheed wa ma yukaffiru min adh-dhunub. Now, what's the title, Akhi? No. The second chapter, Bab Fadl At-Tawheed.
And what it removes of sins.
Ahsant. Bab Fadl At-Tawheed, the chapter of the virtue of Tawheed and the sins that it expiates. Then after this, Bab Man haqqaqa At-Tawheed dakhala al-jannata bighayri hisab.
Who purified Tawheed would enter paradise, giving him account.
Now, whoever implements Tawheed will enter into Jannah without any accountability. Whoever implements Tawheed will enter into Jannah without any questioning on Yawm al-Qiyamah, without any punishment on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Subhanallah. Why did the author mention this chapter? Because he wants us to be enthusiastic about Tawheed. He wants us to know the virtue of Tawheed, the importance of Tawheed. That if we implement pure Tawheed in our lives, then perhaps we'll be from those people who will enter into Jannah without any questioning and without any accountability. May Allah make us from those people. You know? Then, Bab al-Khawf min al-Shirk. And in the fourth chapter, Bab al-Khawf min al-Shirk.
Fear of shirk.
Now, the chapter of fearing a-shirk. And the last chapter, Bab man haqqaqa at-Tawheed dakhal al-Jannata bighayri hisab. Whoever implements Tawheed will enter into Jannah without any accountability. Every single chapter after the third chapter is an explanation of that chapter. So the third chapter was whoever makes tahqiq, meaning whoever implements Tawheed will enter into Jannah without any accountability. Now, every other chapter that comes after it will show us how do we implement At-Tawheed. So when he said, Bab al-Khawf min al-Shirk, the chapter of fearing shirk, meaning that if you want to implement Tawheed, if you want to enter into Bab man haqqaqa Tawheed, then you have to fear a-shirk. So anybody who is not scared of shirk has not made tahqiq of At-Tawheed. So keep this in your mind. Every single chapter which comes now will be from tahqiq At-Tawheed. How do we implement At-Tawheed so we can be from those people? So the first way of implementing Tawheed is al-khawf min al-shirk. You have to be scared of shirk and fearful of being misguided. Then he said, Bab ad-du'a ila shahadati an la ilaha illallah. Naam akhi.
The call to testification of La ilaha illallah.
Naam. That also from tahqiq al-Tawheed is calling to La ilaha illallah. It's not sufficient that you know Tawheed. Then you have to do what the prophets and the messengers did, and you have to teach people Tawheed. You have to call to a Tawheed. And this is from tahqiq al-Tawheed. Then Bab tafsir al-Tawheed wa shahadati an la ilaha illallah.
Explanation of Tawheed and the testimony.
Naam. Also from tahqiq al-Tawheed is knowing Tawheed and knowing the meaning of La ilaha illallah. Then he said, Bab min al-shirki lubsul halqa wal khayt wa nahwihima li raf'il bala'i wa daf'ihi. Naam akhi.
What about work or ring and a twine?
Sorry, say again.
Number 7, isn't it?
Naam.
What about to wear a ring, twine, etc.?
Bab, he said, min al-shirk, that from shirk is wearing rings and wearing amulets and bracelets and ropes to protect yourself from calamities and afflictions. So he mentioned this because this invalidates a Tawheed. So if you want to be a person of Tawheed, either third chapter, Bab man haqqaqa Tawheed dakhal al-Jannat bighayri hisab, then you cannot be wearing amulets and bracelets and rings and ropes and what do they call them? And bracelets to protect yourself like people do today, ta'weez, tamima, to protect yourself from jinn, misfortune, calamities, etc. Then he said, Bab man tabarraka bi shajaratin aw hajarin.
Ruqya, talismans and amulets.
Bab ma ja'a fi ruqa wa tamaim. The chapter of a ruqya and a tamaim. In this chapter, he will explain which type of ruqya is allowed and is tawheed, and which type of ruqya is shirk and it negates tawheed. And also at-tamaim, and at-tamaim are ta'weez. Amulets which people wear, like you see many people today on their children, on their mode of transport, on their houses, they hang certain things to protect themselves. And when this becomes a shirk. Then he said, Bab man tabarraka bi shajaratin aw hajarin.
Seeking blessings with trees or stones.
Naam. because all of this negates man haqqa at-Tawheed, the third chapter. Whoever implements At-Tawheed enters into Jannah without accountability. Therefore, this is negated by those who are seeking blessings from trees and stones and graves and dust, as many people do today. He said, Bab ma ja'a fi dhabh li ghayrillah.
Slaughtering other than Allah.
Naam, because slaughtering for other than Allah negates At-Tawheed. Bab la yuzbahu lillah bi makanin yuzbahu fihi li ghayrillah.
No animal sacrifice for Allah in that place where a sacrifice will be made for other than Allah.
Naam. In this he mentioned an athar from some of the Sahaba, and that is that not only are you not allowed to slaughter an animal in the name of other than Allah, you are not allowed to slaughter an animal in the name of Allah in a place where animals are slaughtered for other than Allah. Meaning, a person goes to a grave and he slaughters an animal at the grave. And then you say to him, look, don't slaughter this animal at the grave. He'll say, no, I'm slaughtering in the name of Allah. I'm not slaughtering in the name of the wali. I'm slaughtering in the name of Allah. No, because this is being done by the grave, there are evidences show this is also haram. Obviously, we'll study this in detail when the time comes. Then he said, Bab min ash-shirk an-nadhr li ghayrillah.
To vow to other than Allah in an act of shirk.
Naam. From shirk is taking an oath or vow by other than Allah. Because all of this negates Bab man haqqaqa at-Tawheed dakhala al-jannata bighayri hisab. Then Bab min ash-shirki al-isti'adha bighayrillah.
Seek refuge in other than Allah in a part of shirk.
Naam. Bab min ash-shirk an yastaghitha bighayrillah. Naam.
To seek help in other than Allah in an act of shirk.
Naam. Then he said, Bab qawlillahi ta'ala ayushrikuna ma la yakhluqu shay'an wa hum yukhlaqun.
Created one could be an objective of worship.
Naam. Meaning the chapter heading is the ayah. The ayah in which Allah subhanahu says, ayushrikuna ma la yakhluqu shay'an wa hum yukhlaqun. That do they ascribe partners to Allah who cannot create, and they themselves have been created. And then Bab qawlillahi ta'ala hatta idha fuzzi'a an qulubihim.
What the Lord has said.
That's it. He mentions the ayah hatta idha fuzzi'a an qulubihim. And when their hearts tremble. And this ayah is regarding the angels. Meaning when the angels hear the speech of Allah, their hearts tremble and they begin to fear. And this is an evidence that the angels have hearts. So in this chapter, Allah subhanahu negates shirk with the angels. And if it's not allowed for a person to worship angels, and angels are from the great creation of Allah, then how is it allowed for a person to worship another person? Naam. And then Babu Shafa'ah. Naam. Why did he mention Babu Shafa'ah? Because the main excuse that the mushrikun utilize of today and of old times to commit the shirk is, no, we're not asking them, but this is our shafa'at to Allah. This is our wasila to Allah. This is our qurba to Allah. And that is the excuse that the mushrikun at the time of the Prophet used to use. And this is the same excuse that people are using today. So they go to a grave and they make dua to the grave. And if you say to them, why do you make dua to these people? They cannot. They say, no, we know they cannot answer. We know Allah answers. But this is our wasila to Allah. This is our intercession to Allah. And so the author mentioned that this also negates At-Tawheed. Then, Bab qawlillahi ta'ala, innaka la tahdi man ahbabt.
Allah guides whom He wills.
Now, the chapter of the saying of Allah is Allah who guides whoever He loves. You, O Prophet, you do not guide whoever you love. It is Allah who guides whoever He loves. Even guidance cannot be sought from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It can only be sought from Allah. And if you seek guidance from other than Allah, then this is a shirk. And then he mentions Bab ma ja'a anna sababa kufri bani Adam al-ghulu fi salihin.
Excessive dogma in the righteous people, the root cause of infidelity.
He mentions the chapter that the main reason and the main cause of shirk amongst the humans is al-ghulu fi salihin. Al-ghulu fil awliya. when people exaggerate the praise of the awliya and the salihin and the righteous, this is the primary cause of shirk. Then باب ما جاء من التغليظ في من عبد الله عند قبر رجل صالح.
The condemnation of worshiping Allah at the grave.
نعم. The severe condemnation of worshipping Allah at the grave of a righteous person, meaning it's not allowed for us to do acts of ibadat at the grave of a righteous person, even if we're worshipping Allah. Never mind worshipping the person in the grave. Meaning, there are evidences in the ahadith and the athar of the Sahaba which forbid worshipping Allah at the grave of a person. How about worshipping the person in the grave? This is his intent. Then after that, باب ما جاء أن الغلو في قبور الصالحين. نعم.
Exaggeration of the grave of righteous persons extends to become idols.
نعم. Then again, al-ghulu, exaggerating and having al-ghulu at the graves of the righteous awliya, this makes those graves idols. And then باب ما جاء في حماية المصطفى جناب التوحيد صلى الله عليه وسلم. نعم.
Effectiveness of Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
نعم. And he gives examples of how the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to close every avenue which may lead to shirk. Even if that avenue is not shirk, even if that action is not shirk, but the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam would forbid that action, not because it's shirk, but it might lead to shirk. Never mind shirk in of itself. Then after this, bab ما جاء أن بعض هذه الأمة يعبد الأصنام.
Some people of his ummah will worship idols.
Now, the chapter, the hadith of the Prophet, that some of this ummah will worship idols. Why? Because the mushrikun would spread a doubt, and that is that this ummah will never commit a shirk. Now, they mention a particular narration in which it is narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَئِسَ أَنْ يَعْبُدْ هَذِي الْأُمَّةِ الْأَصْنَامِ. That shaitan has lost hope of this ummah worshipping idols. So so now the people of shirk, they do action of shirk. The Prophet said this ummah will never do shirk. So therefore our actions cannot be shirk. So the author mentioned evidences showing that there will be actions of this ummah which fall into shirk. Then after this, then after this there are 7 chapters, and these 7 chapters are a'mal shaytaniyah, satanic actions. So the first of them, the first of these 7 chapters, bab ma ja'a fi sihr,
Sorcery.
magic and sorcery, wa anwa' al-sihr, types of magic, wa ma ja'a fi al-kuhan wa nahwihim.
Clarification of types of sorcery.
Now after that,
Alright, on the soothsayers.
fortune tellers and soothsayers, ma ja'a fi nushra,
Curing through magical spells.
نعم ما جاء في التطير,
Is said regarding belief in omens.
omens and superstition. Omens and superstitious behavior, all of this is from the actions of a shaitan. People nowadays, and this is big in the English culture, don't walk under a ladder because it's bad luck for X amount of years. If you see a black cat, then it's bad luck for 7 years. If a mirror breaks whilst you're looking into it, it's bad luck for X amount of years. If you see a black crow, it's bad luck for X amount of years. So, and like even you find many footballers, they have these superstitious, they won't step on a line, they'll touch the ground as they're walking on. All of this is from superstition. All of this is from al-a'mal al-shaytaniyah. Bab ma ja'a fi tanjeen.
Regarding astrology.
Like horoscopes. How many Muslim girls, teenagers, are reading horoscopes? I am Scorpio, was it Aries or something, or Virgo or whatever, and because of this my monthly fortune is this, this and this. I'm going to the kahana, to the fortune tellers who read your hands, read your palm, you live for X amount of years and this will happen in your lifetime. All of this is from al-a'mal al-shaytaniyah. Bab ma ja'a fil istisqa bil anwa'.
Rain through the lunar phases.
Naam. Then after this, the next 9 chapters is regarding A'mal al-Qulub, actions of the heart, and the importance of Tawheed in the actions of the heart. Yani don't think that Tawheed is only praying to Allah and making Hajj for Allah. No, there are actions of the heart which can have shirk. So he mentioned Bab Qawlullahi Ta'ala وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَتَّخِذُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ أَنْدَادًا.
Look for Allah.
Naam. So shirk can also occur in mahabba, in love. Person might think, but I'm praying for Allah, I make salah to Allah alone, I fast for Allah alone, I make hajj for Allah alone. But also there can be mahabba, which can be shirk. Then after this, إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَهُ.
Fear of Allah.
Naam. That shirk can also be in khawf. Then وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَتَوَكَّلُوا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ.
You trust in Allah.
Now that shirk can also occur in dependence and trust. Next, أَفَأَمِنُوا مَكْرَ اللَّهِ.
Fearing against the plan of Allah contradicts Tawheed.
Now, meaning feeling safe against the punishment of Allah, feeling safe. Person thinks, oh, Allah's punishment will not touch me. This negates At-Tawheed. And then as-sabr ala aqdarillah.
Forbearance of what Allah has decreed.
Now that sabr also comes under Tawheed. Even sabr also comes under Tawheed. Bab ma ja'a fi riya.
Forbiddance of showing off.
Now because showing off can negate At-Tawheed. Bab min ash-shirk iradatul insani bi amalihi ad-dunya.
It is of shirk to perform a deed for worldly reasons.
Meaning a person does acts of worship but for the reward of the dunya. A person does acts of worship but for rewards of the dunya. When is this shirk and when is it allowed or not allowed? Bab man ata'a al-ulama wal-umara fi tahrim ma ahalla Allah. To the end of the chapter. تفضل أخي.
Taking scholars and rulers as lords besides Allah.
نعم. Taking scholars and rulers, meaning kings, presidents, prime ministers, heads of the tribes. If they make something halal which is Allah has made haram, and you accept this, then you have taken them as a Rabb besides Allah. Or they make something haram which Allah has made halal, and you accept this and you obey them, then a person has made them a Rabb besides Allah. And this is known as a shirk fi ta'ah. It's known as a shirk fi ta'ah. That shirk is not only in worship, in ibadah, there can also be shirk in obedience. Obeying people in that which Allah has made haram or halal, that can also be a shirk. Then, Bab Qawlillahi Ta'ala yuridun an yatahakamu ila at-Taghut.
Judgment from other than Allah.
Naam. Is also shirk. Then Tawheed, he mentioned Bab man jahada shay'an min al-asma'i was-sifat.
Who denies any of the names and attributes of Allah.
And this is, why did he mention this now? This is from حقوق التوحيد وكمال التوحيد. That from the rights of Tawheed and from the perfection of Tawheed is to affirm the names and the attributes of Allah. So this is why he mentioned this. Then he's going to mention a large number of chapters, and all of this is a shirk al-lafzi, shirk of wording. So before there was shirk of actions, slaughtering, going to magicians, all shirk of actions. Then there was shirk of the heart, like loving other than Allah, fearing other than Allah, riya, this shirk of the heart. Then there can also be shirk of the words, and these are known as al-alfad al-shirkiyya, shirk of words. So the first of them, يَعْرِفُونَ نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ يُنْكِرُونَها.
Recognizing the grace of Allah, yet denying it.
This is a type of kufr and shirk, meaning not appreciating the blessings of Allah. And then فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ.
Rivals to Allah.
نعم. And then باب ما جاء في من لم يقنع بالحلف بالله.
who is not satisfied with an oath of Allah's name.
Naam. Meaning, when you find this today, subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, people will say wallahi and they will lie. But they will never say be Abdul Qadir Jilani and they will lie. And if some people taking an oath by Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu by their mother, by the Kaaba, by Abdul Qadir Jilani, this is more greater than taking an oath by Allah. Somebody will say, Wallahi, I did not do this. They say, swear by the Prophet, you did not do this. Shirk, kufr. Why? Because the halaf by Allah was not great, but the halaf by Muhammad was greater. Or by the Kaaba was greater, by his mother. They say, I swear by my honor. It's not sufficient to say, I swear by Allah. So this is shirk in wording. After this, Bab qawl ma sha Allah wa shi'it.
Allah may will and you may will.
Shirk. Bab, obviously he mentions evidences. We're just going through it quickly. Bab man sabba dahra faqad aad Allah ta'ala.
Whoever curses time has wronged Allah.
نعم. باب التسمي بقاضي القضاة.
You name judge or judges.
Now, it's not correct to name people قاضي القضاة, the judge of judges, وملك الملوك, and the king of kings. And you know, in Urdu, they say, what's it called? Shah, you know, Shane Shah or something. Huh? Shah Shah. What does that mean?
Shah means king.
Naam, of all Shah, of all kings. Do you understand? Shah, meaning king of all kings. Because Shah means king, king of all kings. Shirk, kufr. Naam. Then, so those mean like these terms now, you know, you see them, people say them, they say as a joke, but it's shirk and kufr, and we don't realize. After this, Bab ihtirami asma'illah.
The names of Allah.
Because respecting the names of Allah is from the perfection of At-Tawheed. Bab man hazala bi shay'in fihi dhikrullahi aw al-Quran aw al-Rasul.
Make one of things related to Allah, Quran and His
Subhanallah, how many people you find and they call themselves Muslim comedians and they joke about Allah and they joke about His messenger or His deen. And this is a ridda. This is complete apostasy from the religion of Allah. Even if the person said, I'm only joking, I don't ridda. He's left the fold of Islam without any excuse. You don't even make an excuse for that person. He left the fold of Al-Islam. So this is what the author wanted to mention. Now, even if it's only wording, but it's shirk and kufr. He said, Bab لَإِنْ أَذَقْنَا رَحْمَةً مِنَّا. تفضل.
Say the wealth is the result of my labor and my knowledge.
Now, meaning, not ascribing the blessing to Allah, this can also be shirk. A person saying that everything you see, my house, because of what I did. This can also be shirk and kufr. He said, Bab qawlihi ta'ala, فَلَمَّا آتَاهُمَا صَالِحًا جَعَلَ لَهُ.
Every name which leads to the service of other than Allah is prohibited.
Bab qawlihi ta'ala, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. So call to Allah using His names. This is from the rights of At-Tawheed. Bab la yuqal as-salamu ala Allah. Now why? Because Allah is as-salam. And He is the giver of as-salam. He is the giver of peace. So we can say as-salatu, we can say as-salamu ala nabi. We can say Jibreel alayhi salam. We can say as-salamu alayna wa ala ibadillah. We don't say as-salamu ala Allah because He's as-salam and He's the giver of as-salam. Then Bab qawlihi ta'ala, Allahumma ghfirli in shi'ta.
Saying, oh Allah, forgive me if you wish.
Naam. And is it allowed for a person to say, oh Allah, forgive me if you want to forgive me? And the author mentions this because this is weakness in Tawheed, weakness in Iman. Why are you saying, oh Allah, forgive me if you want to forgive? Don't you know that Allah forgives and He loves to forgive and He loves all people who seek forgiveness? So the only thing which causes people to say, oh Allah, forgive me if you want to forgive me, is a weakness of Tawheed and a weakness of Iman. Then, Bab la yuqal abdi wa amati.
Should not say my slave.
Now, a person should not say, oh my slave. Now, this is something which is specific to Allah. Bab la yuraddu man sa'ala billah.
Whoever asks for the name of Allah is not to be rejected.
Now, if somebody said to you, I ask you by the name of Allah, that you give this and this. Firstly, is it allowed to ask in this manner or not? We will study. If somebody does ask and you're able to, and you give and it doesn't contain oppression, etc., then you should not refuse. Why? Ta'zeem ism Allah. Not because of the person, but because he asked you by the name of Allah. And so the muwahhid, he exalts the name of Allah. Bab la yus'al bi wajhillah illa al-jannah.
Nothing but paradise should be asked for by Allah's face.
No, meaning it's not allowed for a person to say, brother, I ask you by the face of Allah, XYZ. This is not allowed. You're only allowed to ask for Jannah by the face of Allah. We'll study this when the time comes. Bab ma ja'a fil law.
I'm saying if only.
If only. No. Because like the Messenger said, if Allah yaftahu amal shaitan, that saying if only had done, if only it was like this, if only this didn't happen, this opens the door of a shaitan towards a shirk. So we will study when is it allowed for a person to say if only, and when is it haram for a person to say if only this happened or this did not occur. Bab an-nahyan sabr rih.
Prohibition of cursing the wind.
نعم. باب قوله تعالى يظنون بالله غير الحق ظن الجاهلية. نعم. باب ما جاء في منكري القدر. نعم. باب ما جاء في المصورين. نعم. باب ما جاء في كثرة الحلف. Now, meaning, even taking an oath by the name of Allah, even taking an oath by, so we're talking about Tawheed, we're not talking about shirk. Taking an oath by the name of Allah is not something which you should do frequently. Why? Because this, what's the word? Naam, it lowers the exaltation of the name of Allah. That it's not that easy for any and every small thing we mentioned, wallahi, 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 any business, money, joking, anything, wallahi, no. It's not allowed for a person to mention the name, take an oath by the name of Allah a lot, even if it is At-Tawheed, because even this is a weakness of At-Tawheed. Then باب ما جاء في ذمة الله.
Protection of Allah's covenant and His Prophet's covenant.
نعم. باب ما جاء في الإقسام على الله.
Swear and take oath, binding upon Allah.
نعم. باب لا يستشفع بالله على خلقه.
None asks the protection of Allah for His creation.
نعم. باب ما جاء في حماية المصطفى حمى التوحيد. Now, how the Prophet used to safeguard At-Tawheed. And then this is the last chapter, the 67th chapter. Bab قول الله تعالى وما قدر الله حق قدره.
They made not just estimate of Allah.
Meaning, they are the mushrikun, those who commit shirk with Allah, they only commit shirk with Allah. Why? ما قدر الله حق قدره. Because they did not give Allah His exaltation which He is deserving of. They did not give Allah His exaltation which He is deserving of, and therefore they commit actions of a shirk. And that was the last chapter. So we understand, alhamdulillah, generally speaking, what this book consists of. So it begins with a number of chapters about the importance of Tawheed and the fadl of At-Tawheed and how to make tahqiq of At-Tawheed. And then all of it is regarding explaining tahqiq At-Tawheed. So then the author speaks about the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and then he speaks about actions which negate Tawheed, and actions of the heart which negate Tawheed, and then statements of the tongue which negate At-Tawheed. Then he speaks about some of the actions of shaitan, yani al-a'mal al-shaytaniyya, like magic and fortune telling. Then he speaks about the importance of al-asma wa sifat and the rights of At-Tawheed. Then he speaks about some of the words which contradict At-Tawheed. And then he ends it with وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهِ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ, that the root cause of Tawheed is because people are not exalted Allah as He's deserving of being exalted. And obviously, because these lessons are only once a month, if we only explain one chapter every lesson, we'll be here for 67 months. Now, and how many years is that? Someone who's good at maths. 67 years, how many months? Huh? No. And then Ramadan comes, and Hajj comes, and conferences come, and so you end up missing 1 or 2 months. So you're talking 7 years before we finish the book. Now, and there is a principle, al-ilm yunsi al-ilm, that sometimes knowledge can make you forget knowledge. Sometimes knowledge can make you forget knowledge. If a person comes and he gives a 10-minute concise lesson, you'll remember. If a person comes and gives you an hour lesson, you forget everything. And so sometimes knowledge can make you forget knowledge. Now, what I mean by this is if we take 6 years to finish Kitāb At-Tawheed, by the time the 6th year has come, you'll have forgotten what we studied in the first place. Now, so we're not going to go in detail. Now, in fact, the Masail which he mentions, we're not going to mention them. And we'll try that every lesson we take maybe 2 or 3 chapters. Even if it's just reading and very basic ta'liq, and we try to finish it as quick as we can. We ask Allah subhanahu for tawfiq, and we ask Allah subhanahu to make us from Tawheed, and He makes us those people who make tahqiq of Tawheed. And so we enter into Jannah without hisab and without adhab. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا وسلم وجزاكم الله.